Thank you, Lascar. Look, I just want to speak to the what the Minister said there. Am I to take it now that the IAA are to take over full responsibility for oversight of the SAR contractor with respect to helicopter services, or will the department still have their own person carrying out oversight duties?
Just the IAA Air Navigation Service provider, the ANSP, it's responsible for the provision of aviation rescue coordination within Ireland's search and rescue region, which is coincident with the Shannon Flight Information Region. IAA ANSP provides this service from the Aviation Rescue Coordination Centre in Shannon ATC, that's the Air Traffic Control Centre, and the Aviation Rescue Sub-Centre in Dublin ATC. Marine rescue is provided by the Coast Guard from the Marine Rescue Coordination Centre in Dublin, with marine rescue sub-centres in Valencia and Malin. Both the ARCC and the MRCC work closely with An Garda Síochána, who are the agency for the provision of land-based search and rescue. At committee stage, Schedule 2 of the bill was amended to make clear that the IAA has responsibility for regulation of the rescue coordination centres and rescue sub-centres aspect of Annex 12 of the Convention. Pursuant to SIs 171 of 1995 and 172 of 1995, the IAA, Air Navigation Service Provider, given responsibility for operationalising the Aeronautical Rescue Coordination Centre, responsibility for oversight of the ARCC fell to the IAA regulator. In essence, the bill is restating this position. As previously confirmed to Senator Craughwell, this amendment does not relate to the AAIU or 116 findings.
Yes, thank you. So, Amendment 1, it's already been moved and spoken to. So the question is that the amendment be made. Is that agreed? Agreed, thank you. Amendment 2, a government amendment, I move. It's already discussed with 1. The question is that the amendment be made. Is that agreed? Agreed, thank you all. Amendment 3, I move, arises out of committee proceedings. 3 and 4 are related and may be discussed together by agreement. Is that agreed by the House? Agreed, thank you. So amendment I move, it's already discussed with 3. So the question is that the amendment be made. Is that agreed? Agreed, thank you. Amendment 5, a government amendment I move. It arises out of committee proceedings. 5 to 7 inclusive are related and may be discussed together by agreement. Is that agreed by the House? Agreed? Agreed, thank you. I'll invite the Minister to speak to the grouping 5 to 7 initially, to present the grouping, please.
Thank you, Gerard. So amendments 5, 6 and 7 are technical amendments developed in consultation with the Controller and Auditor General, which amend section 29 of the bill, which deals with the accounts and the audit of AirNav Ireland by removing references to balance sheets, profit and loss accounts and to cash flow statements. So the purpose of these amendments is to reflect the changes that have occurred in financial reporting terminology.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Craughwell has indicated, followed by Senator Doherty.
Yeah, just as been said already, it's very late in the day. This bill is 2 years rolling through this House. It is rather late in the day to find technical amendments that should have been picked up much earlier. Just when I see erroneous amendments being brought forward because of erroneous drafting or whatever, I just wonder, are there other things we haven't found yet?
So the Companies Act refers to balance sheets. However, they also make provision for the move to the term statement of financial position as provided for in accounting standards and as used in general accounting practice. For example, section 2741 of the Companies Act 2014 outlines balance sheet in relation to a company. It means a statement of assets, liabilities and financial position drawn up at a particular date showing the assets, liabilities and the equity of the company at that date in a manner required by the financial reporting framework adopted by the company, and for the avoidance of doubt, where the financial statements are prepared in accordance with the IFRS, the International Financial Reporting Standards. The expression means the statement of financial position referred to in those standards. In simple terms, the statement of financial position has replaced balance sheet. in general usage, driven mainly by the adoption of the term in accounting standards. In relation to profit and loss account, this term continues to be used both in law and accounting standards. Entities which are not for profit, such as charities and many semi-state bodies, generally use the term income and expenditure account in place of profit and loss account in their financial statements. Cash flow statements, there has been no change in relation to this term. So it's currently audited by the C&AG, and these are, I suppose, recommendations coming from them.
So Amendment 5 is already moved. I've already moved it, and it's been discussed in the grouping. So the question is that the amendment be made. Is that agreed? Agreed.
Yeah, I am, yeah. There is one slight difference. It says not less than, we say minimum, but I think it's marginal.
Yeah. Yep. So Amendment 9, a government amendment, I move. The question is that the amendment be made. Is that agreed? But agreed. Thank you. And then Amendment 10 in the names of Senators Doherty and Craughwell, as it's already discussed, but 9 cannot be moved in the circumstances, and that's agreed.
Well, that's good. Just, Minister, you might clarify for me there. I'm reading section A there. Specified the organisations invited to participate in the forum, which shall include recognised aviation stakeholders, groups, recognised aviation trade unions, representative bodies, etc., etc. Are you, as Minister, going to find yourself in a situation now where, when you go to specify the groups or the participants in this, that others will feel excluded and not have representation at this board? As you know, I was never happy with the notion that we would include everybody involved in aviation. But are we now going to find a situation where we're going to see massive lobbies coming in from people who are excluded, for the sake of argument? And I just wonder, are you opening the bill and yourself up to a long and protracted period of people demanding to have a seat at this table?
Indeed. Thank you very much. Senator Craughwell, please.
Yeah, no, I totally support my colleague Senator Doherty on this. I just, I would be extremely uncomfortable with the IA making their own, appointing their own chairman, and I think this makes perfect sense and would make for a far more democratic organisation from the outset. And in light of the fact that you're probably going to have to go back to the dial with this anyway because of the amendments that have been made, I'd ask you to take on that one amendment. You have been extremely cooperative so far, so I'd ask you to consider that as well.
No. Yes, therefore fine. So, Minister, to respond, please.
Thank you, Cathaoirleach. So, in respect of Amendment 14, I believe this is unnecessarily prescriptive. It's for the IAA to propose the chair of the forum, subject to consultation with the shareholders. So, there will be that consultation process as part of this.
Yeah. So, Senator Craughwell, the seconder.
I second the amendment. Look, We've discussed this and thrashed it all over the House about the licence holders form. The important thing here is that you have what I would call a mean, keen group of people who all have a common interest, and you're taking out the fog out of the committee, if you want. This stakeholders forum will include all sorts of people that have absolutely no role whatsoever in developing a licence holders charter. But the people that have been specified here in our amendment are, if you want, directly involved in the safety and the safe operation of the aircraft. And from that point of view, I think it's a perfectly reasonable amendment. It doesn't detract in any way from the bill. If anything, it adds to the bill. And from that point of view, I think I would ask the Minister to consider this amendment seriously at this stage. It doesn't change anything from what you want to do at the moment with respect to the stakeholders forum. It is there. The only thing it does do is it brings the experts in the area that are drafting a charter into a subcommittee, and I think it makes perfect sense. So from that point of view, I would ask you to consider that.
Thank you. Minister, to respond, please.
Thank you, Cathaoirleach. In relation to Amendment 15, there is nothing in Section 76 precluding the IAA from establishing subgroups of the Aviation Stakeholders Forum to address specific issues and involving specific stakeholders. Indeed, the IAA is looking at the models of the EASA Stakeholder Advisory Board and the ICAO panel structure in terms of development of the forum and subgroups. The purpose of the licence holders charter is for the IAA regulator to set out the standards of engagement that it will undertake with licence holders. Section 76 foresees that the IAA developing the licence holders charter and consulting on it with the forum. Amendment 15 sees a subgroup of licence holders developing the licence holders charter and subsequently submitting it to the IAA and the Minister. This, in my view, upends the relationship between the regulator and the regulated, and by including the Minister interferes with the independence of the IAA. The fundamental point that we all want to achieve is that a forum is established that provides for the voices of relevant stakeholders, including licence holders, to be heard, and that these voices contribute to the development of the Charter. As such, I don't propose to accept Amendment 15.
Thank you, Ms. Gerlach. What has driven the argument, the debate over the last 2.5 years? For me, what has driven it, quite apart from contact with IALPA and individual pilots themselves making contact with me, what has driven me in all of this is the Rescue 116. And perhaps if we had legislation in place and had greater oversight and had more engagement, had a management willing to listen to their employees. I mean, if we go through the report on Rescue 116, we find countless errors, countless examples of unwillingness to listen. A classic example is the overall lighting in the cockpit, for example. So that's what has driven me through all of this. And maybe if we had strong legislation in place, and maybe if we had the ability for crew to go outside the organisation they work for and seek support from outside, things might have been highlighted much sooner and 4 lives might not have been lost. And everything Senator Doherty has said here this evening, I totally concur with. And I recognise the fact that for the Senator herself, it's not easy to be on the arguing side of a bill when you are from the government side. But I believe that what we've tried to do is we have tried to bring home the importance of the people who actually operate at the coalface of this organisation and the importance of their voice and the importance of having systems in place that support them. Sadly, those systems have been lacking. And I cannot let this last debate or this last part of the bill go without drawing down what I have said time and time and time again, and that is a Department of Transport without aviation expertise in that department, for me, is a farce beyond belief. We have an air accident investigation report that says you should have in-house expertise, and for some unexplainable reason we don't have that. The peer support group, if I were a pilot, I would want to be able to choose my peer support and go to that person and engage with them, and it might give me the courage to raise issues at a much higher level if I had somebody in the background supporting me, and to restrict that support as within the organisation only. That simply wouldn't work. And I would ask the Minister, even at this late stage, take this amendment. You have been more than willing in recent months to assist and move this legislation forward. And like Senator Doherty said, I believe we have the best we could get in the circumstances we've been working in. Still not perfect, there's a long way to go to be perfect, and I hope we don't find ourselves back here in a few years' time eating humble pie and trying to amend this legislation to bring in some of the stuff we've been talking about over the last 2.5 years. But I will be pressing the amendment as well. So, thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Senator Craughwell. Minister to respond, please.
Thank you, Cathaoirleach. The requirement in Irish law for crew peer support derives from EU Regulation 2018-1042. The regulation was developed in consultation with all stakeholders, including pilot representative bodies across Europe. The final regulation represents a consensual balance of the views of all stakeholders. The regulation came into effect in February 2021. The IAA is the competent authority in Ireland in respect of the regulation. All Irish airlines have a peer support programme in place, and the IAA has audited all peer support programmes as per the EASA requirements. Having listened to the views of senators at committee stage, I introduced Section 77 of the bill, which requires the IAA to undertake a review of the effectiveness of crew peer support programmes, and in doing so to take into account most of the criteria as originally proposed by senators, including addressing matters such as the promotion of use of a programme and the trust in it, independence of the peers from management or supervisory functions, and the selection and training of the peers. Senator Craughwell and Doherty's amendments differ in 3 respects from the original text of Section 77. It requires that a pilot should be able to seek assistance from a peer not working in the same organisation, 3 yearly reviews of peer support programmes by the IAA, and a review of the legislative provisions after a period of 12 months. In respect of the position that a pilot should be able to seek assistance from a peer not working in the same organisation, the EU regulation places the responsibility on airlines to ensure that they have effective crew peer support arrangements in place. A critical element in the process is for the airline to be guided by a peer as to when a pilot needs to be rostered off and supported. The airline has to be satisfied that the guidance is coming from a source that they are satisfied with and have confidence in. What is being envisaged in this amendment is a very different model to what pertains now. It's unclear how it would be operationalised and what the consequences would be. The proposal requires very serious and careful consideration and input from the IAA and EASA reviews and discussion at the Aviation Stakeholders Forum. The IAA operates within a larger integrated single European civil aviation system. We need to be mindful that we don't create a parallel set of national level requirements conflicting with our EU responsibilities. Turning to the proposal for 3 yearly reviews of peer support programmes by the IAA and a review of the legislative provisions after a period of 12 months, it's important to note that there will be 2 significant reviews of crew peer support in 2023, both by EASA and the IAA. EASA has started its process to review the effectiveness of peer support programmes, which it will complete by October 2023. The review will involve relevant stakeholders and will be based on data gathered with support from Member States, EASA and other stakeholders. The target stakeholder groups are national competent authorities such as the IAA, aircraft operators, flight and cabin crew, as well as other safety-sensitive personnel and associations representing pilots and cabin crew, airlines and aviation psychologists and psychiatrists. Section 77 of the bill, as passed at committee, already requires the IAA to undertake a review of crew peer support programmes operated by airlines within 12 months of commencement of the bill and to publish the outcome of the review on its website. The IAA is aiming to conduct their review in parallel with the EASA review. I believe the output from these 2 reviews will provide the evidential basis for policy and legislative development in respect of crew peer support, and as such I cannot accept Amendment 16.
Thank you very much, Cathaoirleach. At the outset, I would like to acknowledge the officials who sit here for hours and hours on end, providing briefs to ministers, listening to what's being said, bringing that back to their department, and that's how amendments get made and get brought here. So I would like to acknowledge their presence here, and I would like to thank them for the work they do. It would be remiss of me not to thank IALPA for their engagement with us, with all of us, and their genuine concern for their members. And I particularly mention Captain Cullen here, who has been outstanding in the way in which he has engaged with me over the last couple of years on this bill. He, like myself and Senator Doherty, only wanted the best for his members, and as a former leader of a trade union, I can fully understand that. Minister, I want to thank you for your patience, because I know this was deeply frustrating for you. I know it was deeply difficult for you. We're both county people, we share the same county, and I really do acknowledge the work you've done and the way you have come along with this bill, and I want to thank you for that, because there is a genuineness about what you have done. So I really do appreciate that. I can't close without going back to our search and rescue, and I will appeal to you, Minister, for you and your officials to engage with me on the forthcoming SAR contract. It is simply not good enough to say it's already in black and white, we can't do anything about it. The United Kingdom has gotten 18 helicopters on 12 bases for 1.6 billion. We can do an awful lot better in this country for the citizens of this country. And hiding behind legislation or hiding behind EU regulations or claiming that people are working for people who are participants in the tendering process is grossly unfair, highly insulting to me, because my only wish is to get the best deal for Ireland and the best deal for our pilots and crews. I'll leave it at that, and thank you very much indeed.
Thank you very much indeed, Senator Craughwell. Minister.
Thank you, Cathaoirleach, for chairing the session. I'd also like to thank senators for your contributions and your amendments proposed, some of which will now be included in the bill before it's returned to the Dáil. And while we may not have agreed on all the provisions in this bill, I think we've worked constructively to reach a compromise on a number of provisions, including crew peer support programmes, the amendment introduced following our engagements, which will require the IAA to undertake a review of the effectiveness of the crew peer support programmes. Also, the amendment providing for the IAA to convene an aviation stakeholders forum, and the provision requiring the IAA to publish a licence holders charter setting out the standards of engagement that will be undertaken by the IAA with the holders of licences. Our constructive engagement has also seen an amendment introduced reducing from 5 years to 3 years the time interval for statutory safety examinations of the IAA. Connected to this is the amendment removing the Minister's discretion to withhold publication and to require publication of the report on a website maintained by the Government. Finally, an amendment to provide that the IAA consult with stakeholders in the preparation of its statement of strategy has been introduced. The bill provides for significant institutional changes to how aviation is regulated in Ireland. Specifically, at a high level, it provides for the separation of the IAA with the safety regulation side of the IAA to be merged with the Commission of Aviation Regulation (CAR) to create a standalone aviation regulator. The bill also sees new mechanisms being introduced with regard to aviation regulation and engagement, for example, the forum and charter, and new responsibilities for the IAA in response to an aviation sector that has changed significantly over the last 29 years since the enactment of the Irish Aviation Authority Act in 1993. This bill, upon enactment, will make a real difference to how aviation is regulated in Ireland for the benefit of the travelling public and for the aviation industry alike. And finally, I would also like to thank my officials who have put in a significant amount of work on this bill and have been completely engaged right throughout the process and wanting to work with colleagues right across the House. And I want to thank the staff of the House here and everyone involved in bringing this legislation forward. Thank you.